We are in Maaser Sheni, Perek Hey, Mishnah Tetvav, the very last Mishnah in Maaser Sheni. The last Mishnah talking about, it's actually a non sequitur, it's not relevant to the Vidui Mas, what we said, we've been talking about in the past few Mishnayot. So the Mishnah talks about several decrees, Gzerot, that Yochanan Kohen Gadol decreed. This Mishnah actually repeats itself near the end of Masechet Sotah as well, which is just interesting to know. Says the Mishnah, the Mishnah is about Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Yochanan Kohen Gadol was a very, very widely, very highly respected Kohen Gadol. The Gemara says that Yochanan Kohen Gadol, if you look at the Aspaklaria on Yochanan Kohen Gadol, so the Gemara says, there's a Mishnah that says, Al ta'amin ba'atzmecha ad yom motcha. Don't rely on yourself until the day you die. A person should never be sure about his own religious status. Why? Yochanan Kohen Gadol, shimesh b'kuhuna gdola shmonim shana. He was the Kohen Gadol for 80 years, which is a long time. It must have been 95. Ulubisov na'aset tzeduki. And at the very end of his life, he became a tzeduki. So that's the Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who was considered very highly respected. And we'll see nonetheless, at the end of his life, he became a tzeduki. It's worth noting, though, that the Mishnah, nonetheless, doesn't refrain from including his teachings, and the Gzerot. The Gzerot became part of the canon of religious practice. Says the Mishnah. Okay, and the Gemara in Sotah, I'm not going to bring the Gemara because the Bar Tanura basically, in his explanation, tells us why he did what he did. So we'll just learn the Bar Tanura. Says the Mishnah, Yochanan Kohen Gadol ha'evir hodayot ha'maaser. It is relevant, actually, to Vidui Maaser because he removed it. He stopped the Vidui Maaser. Why? He says the following. He removed Hodayat Maaser in his time. He was Kohen Gadol after Shimon HaTzadik in Beit Sheni. Why? When Ezra HaSofer, the guy who appears in the Navi Ezra, he decreed that the Levim do not give Maaser Rishon. Why? He wanted to bring as many people as possible to rebuild the Jewish settlement in Eretz Yisrael. Sounds familiar. But the Levim didn't come with him. So from that point on, he made a Gzeira. He said, no Maaser to Levim. The Maaser goes to the Kohanim. And therefore, Yochanan Kohen Gadol bitel Vidui. So therefore, Yochanan Kohen Gadol had to get rid of Vidui. Because you can't say Netativ LaLevi. Remember, you say, this is a Vidui Masra that appears in the end of Dvarim. I've destroyed the Kodesh. I've given it to the Levi. If you can't say Netativ LaLevi, you can't say I've given it to the Levi because you haven't given it to the Levi. Because the rule now is you give it to the Kohen. So then you're stuck. So therefore he removed the Evir Vidui Ma'asrot. Now we go on to other things that Yochanan Kohen Gadol enacted. He did. Afu bitel et ha'me'orim ve'et ha'nokfim. He stopped the nokfim and me'orim. What are me'orim and nokfim? Also the Bar Tanura. This is straight from the Gemara in Sotah. Bitel et ha'me'orim shayu leviim omrim b'chol yom ala duchan. The Leviim would say the following: Ura lama tishan Hashem. Wake up, lit-orer. Wake up, Hashem. Why are you sleeping? He didn't like that. I mean, it's obviously figurative language. Amar lahem v'chi yeshena lifnei hamakom. Does God sleep? No. Amar ubitlam. Because the Gemara says, I'll just quote you from the bottom, the Gemara says, let's move me out of the way. The Gemara says, Hinei lo yanu v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. God is not, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't sleep. Ela kol zman sheYisrael shuyim b'tzar v'nochim b'shalva. Except when the Jewish people are shuyim b'tzar and the nochim are b'shalva are peace. Therefore it says, Ur lama tishan. So therefore, Yochanan Kohen Gadol, I think it was also a reflection of, are we in Tsar or are we not in Tsar? So he was Mevatel. He was Mevatel the Orim. What are the Nokfim? Linkof, Nokef. It's an unclear word. Says the Gemara. The Bar Tanura says. She'uvisartim la'egel shel korban ben karnav. They would scrape. They would make a wound. They would puncture the animal between its horns. Kadei shipol dam be'inav, so that blood would fall in its eyes. It won't see. And then they could turn it down, push it down, and slaughter the animal. It was easier. They would just cut it, it wouldn't see, and then they would slaughter it right away. He got rid of this practice. Because it looks like you're making a wound. That what they obviously would do in such a way wouldn't wound the animal permanently. And so what did he do? They said, well, we got to shech the animals. The animal's going to go crazy when it sees the knife. So he established in the Beit HaMikdash that these rings in the ground, they would stick the animal, its neck in, and that would hold the animal down, and then they could slaughter the animal in an appropriate way. Nokfim, what would they do? Makim, they would hit, bang, I guess bang sticks or make noise in order to startle the animal. Okay, and he stopped that because he thought it was very similar to a practice of avodah zarah. Okay, he said they would bang. Others say, the Gemara says, they would bang the animal. Makim, they would hit the animal with maklot, with sticks. And he said it looks like avodah zarah. He didn't like that. Okay, the Mishnah continues. And until his days, you would hear the hammers hammering in Yerushalayim. Mishnah says, the Bartanera says, the metal workers, iron, brass, and copper workers, they would do their work on Chol HaMoed, Shimuteret. It was Avodah Muteret, it was Tzarech Hayom or whatever, but he didn't like it. Amaru Bitlan, Mishum De'av Shamilta Tuva. It made a lot of noise. Viga Zilzul Moed. Meaning, all the people were here, all of the other regular, all of a sudden it was like a regular work day. You didn't feel the Chag, and he felt that was inappropriate, so he stopped that. The Mishnah finally continues. The last section, the last paragraph, the last passage in Masechet Maaser Sheni. And from his days on, you wouldn't have to ask on Demai. Essentially what the Mishnah is saying is that he instituted the rules of Demai that appeared in Masechet Demai. Because until then, when you bought from the Aret, you didn't know what was going on. Okay? So therefore everybody, it was a chashash, maybe they didn't take up Truma at all, maybe they didn't take up anything at all. So he did a survey, and he went and found out what are people doing. So he amar livnei doro, through the Bartanura, he said to the people of his generation, Kishem shetruma gedola avon mita, kach trumat maaser v'tevel avon mita. Just like truma gedola is a problem, is an avon mita. There's mita b'dei shamayim, a person who eats truma. So too trumat maaser and tevel. V'tikein and made a takana sheyotziu min adamai trumat maaser. So he demanded that they take off. He established they would only take off trumat maaser. Maaser Sheni bilvad, and only Maaser Sheni. They didn't have to give Maaser Rishon to the Levi or Maaser Ani because it's Hamotzi Michalavero or Alavaraya, because it was not; those are not considered kadosh. Umitakanazo ve'elach, and from that point on, Halokiach minashuk loya shoel imitukanim olav. You didn't have to ask the guy would lie to you; you weren't sure. Ela miyad mifrat mafrish mehem trumot Maaser Maaser Sheni v'chelet hashar. You would have to take off trumat Maaser Sheni. Okay, if you buy fruits of Ma'amaretz, then you have to assume it's Demai. He instituted the rules of Demai that were then accepted from his time on, because until this time you would have to take off Truma and Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni, and it became a whole balagan because you didn't know what the Ma'amaretz were doing. So he said, listen, I did a search, they take off Truma, but they don't take off Maaser, we have to do Trumat Maaser, we have to do Maaser Sheni. He made it much more simple, much simpler for everybody to function. This is the end of Masechet Maaser Sheni, Salik Masechet Maaser Sheni. Hope you've enjoyed learning with me. I definitely have enjoyed learning with you. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, feel free to contact me at rspolter@gmail.com. And as always, dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, of Simcha Ben Yitzchak Kalma. Have a great day. Chazak v'nitchazek.